Back to Inside Politics. Our guest today is Dr. Richard Tarpey from Middle Tennessee State University. We're talking about the state of the economy. Dr. Tarpey, I want to turn to the service industry, particularly in fast food. Are we going to see, again, because of this labor shortage that we're having, that particularly in terms of going into fast food restaurants, that we're going to see an increase of automation, particularly in the use of artificial intelligence with kiosks and things like that? We won't go to the counter anymore and order with a human being. We'll order with a machine, and then somehow it'll be brought out to you either on a conveyor belt or some other way.
I believe so. McDonald's has already been looking at automation. I think most of the companies have been looking at automation. If you look at the earnings reports for companies for the last year, the word automation is mentioned. I forgot the exact statistic. There was a couple professors that were doing a study on this, 70% more in the last year than it used to be mentioned in the earnings reports. And if it's mentioned in the earnings reports, that means a company's looking at it.
Is automation showing up in the retail outlets? I mean, usually people want that human touch when they go out back to the brick and mortar stores. They don't want to have to go in and enter it into a machine.
That's right. It hasn't showed up in retail as much. That's a tough nut to crack. We saw Amazon try to do the entire employee-less store. That didn't work out so well, where you would just walk in, pick something out. You didn't even have to go to a register. It just kind of electronically on the way out hit your account.
Basket, yeah.
Yeah, that didn't work out so well. We haven't seen those stores proliferate across the United States. So retail's a tougher nut to crack. You know, automation always starts with the easiest tasks and progressively gets to more complex tasks.
Let's talk about the supply chain. It seems like every week there's something else that's in short supply, and it's been odd things, everything from baby formula to women's sanitary, and then the big one back in the early days of the pandemic was toilet paper. Is the supply chain slowly but finally getting back under control?
I think it is. Again, the supply chain was overwhelmed with demand at a point where our supply, we had a negative supply shock, which is essentially supplies going down. So we had factories closed, we had production closed, shippers reduced their capacity because it wasn't sustainable from a profitability perspective. And then suddenly we got a handle on the pandemic, or at least we got to the point where we stopped closing everything, and then demand rocketed up quickly. Well, it takes time to get supply ramped up again.
I have heard in terms of durable goods and those that used to be stuck out at sea that bottleneck has ended, and a lot of retailers are sitting on a lot of durable goods, clothes and things like that they need to get rid of. Are we going to see some sales coming up that perhaps we weren't expecting because of that?
I think so. Target announced last month that they had excess inventory to put on sale. What's interesting about that topic is the big stores did such a horrible job of forecasting. So when the pandemic lockdowns hit, people started buying appliances, home decor, exercise equipment. And then as things started lightening up, the stores kept ordering that same stuff. Well, now nobody's buying that anymore. Everybody's bought as much home decor as they possibly can handle over the last 2 years. So now everybody's switched to different products that stores haven't ordered for inventory.
So they have to eat some of that stuff?
They're going to have to discount it to get rid of it, or it's going to show up at your Ollie's and your discounters.
Now, for years, I have heard people in business tout the idea that what makes them great these days, what makes them profitable, is the just-in-time. Everything's going to get there just when I need it. Well, just-in-time has become a real nightmare. How are we going to see that change long-term? Are people going to change that process and maybe have a little bit more things on reserve in the store so that if they need it, they've got it, or they're going to go back to just-in-time, whatever that means?
You know, I think in the near to midterm, we have just-in-time and just-in-case, right? Just-in-time is I have no inventory, very little inventory. Just-in-case is I have inventory for unforeseen events. We're going to see somewhere in between. The funny thing about human nature and business is that we tend to forget, right? When the tsunami hit Japan several years ago and we had problems getting parts and things, everybody said, oh, just in time, we need to change it, we need to change it. Well, as that kind of receded into the background of people's memories, everybody went back to just in time.
Another just-in-time industry that's being ravaged because of a lack of computer parts is in the automobile industry. Mm-hmm. They're way back ordered for this sort of thing. Is that going to continue? Are we starting to see them become more available? I think they were backed up in China and other places, although there's some other just problems in general about getting cars manufactured. But right now, it's very difficult to buy a new car, and for that matter, even a used car.
Yeah, that's getting better, and you can see that in the price of used cars have started to fall. The auto industry, of course, when the pandemic hit, auto industry stopped building a lot of cars. They've slowed down, so they didn't need as many chips. So what happened was the chips from China started going into what everybody was buying. Everybody was buying computers to stay at home, TVs, gaming systems, all kinds of electronics in their house to automate their house. Those chips went there. So when the auto industry started having higher demand, there were no chips left. They were all being put in TVs and all.
As we start to get into the final parts of the show, let's talk about the airline industry. That's one of your areas of expertise. The government pumped in millions and millions of dollars to keep them afloat during the pandemic. They've come back, but they don't seem to be ready to handle the demand. I mean, you've got more flights canceled every weekend. People are frustrated, and now we find the airlines are reporting record profits. This sounds like they're going to catch a real PR problem.
Probably. Everything today is 80% emotional and 20% logic. We've changed quite a bit over the years. So airlines got a lot of money during the pandemic to sustain operations. Now they're at the state of, again, staffing, demand and staffing. So if I don't have enough flight attendants to operate a flight, by regulations, I can't operate that flight. So I have to cancel flights if I don't have the staff. When the pandemic hit, a lot of pilots retired. A lot of baby boomer pilots retired during that time.
And now training becomes even more important. You don't want people up here who haven't been trained as much as the other people flying a plane.
Right. Well, a lot of people don't understand about training. I watched something on a recent news channel that said there were 8,000 pilots that got their license. We don't have a pilot shortage. Just getting your license does not make you a pilot. You have to have 1,000 hours of experience before you can become a commercial pilot.
Dr. Tarpey, thank you so much for being on the program. I think we'll have you back in the future to talk about what appears to be a still confusing situation, but hopefully maybe it's getting a little bit better.
I would enjoy that. Thank you much.
Thank you so much for joining us on Inside Politics. Hope you'll be back here again for a future show. If you got to get into politics in the meantime, you can go to the of our website. You'll find my Capitol View commentary there. New commentary posted every Friday afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll see you here next time. Goodbye.